I have to be very quick to mute this. I'll be in the live chat, but I have to be very quick to mute this. In the live chat. Oh, hello.
Always leave it to the Brit to get their audio all mixed up. You know, you're like hot mics, and people start talking. It's really weird. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with the audio today. I think it's because it's UKer, and you know they just didn't mess everything up like Brexit.
He says that like he didn't just mess up the audio right before we started.
I didn't mess it up. I don't know what's going on. But I think I may have fixed it. Let me see if they could hear you guys on the outside first, because I don't want any echo, and I have two NDIs open.
I just heard myself, so that's okay.
Can you guys hear them?
Yeah, it looks like they can hear us.
Okay, so there's no echo? Because
Do we sound like trash?
We sound like
I'm
trash
coming out of
anyway.
it, right? Sound like I'm coming through a tin can.
Yeah, I'm bringing you guys as actually, I'm doing it like with NDI, so you guys have each individual inputs rather than my usual like system sounds. All right, somebody's clear. We're good. All right, so good morning. It is Sunday. Unusual day for Caffeine Corner, although I don't know, we might switch around. We got some things coming up, but we got a UKer here. We have to like do their time zone stuff because unfortunately the Earth isn't flat, and so we got Dave Worley here. If you guys know who he is, he has a channel out there that's highly undersubbed. See if we can get him like maybe to 1,000 today. He has like 750 or something. Link is in the video description, but he interviews people and just has great chats, just like I used to kind of do ages ago. But he does it more effectively and with more people. So welcome, Dave. Morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah. That's right.
UK.
Yeah. What time is it?
From the real time zone. I should say, knocking our time zones. The only reason that I couldn't do it later is because somebody already booked me. So blame Makasuchi.
Yeah, you're popular.
I know.
So tomorrow you want to talk about why you're so popular?
Yeah, what is it you do again? Who are you? Dave, are you there?
Uh-oh.
Am I there?
There you go.
There you go.
Dave's
You're
Skype.
back.
Oh my god. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
You're back.
What was going on?
Yeah, first, tell people who you are, because if I don't know, like I said, it's been a
Sure.
while. I was on your podcast, DRP 51, and the non-sec was on a few.
Once. I've already said. Yeah. So I end up doing various different atheist/agnostic interviews. I have to say that as like a little disclaimer. In the same way, I have to say I've also had Ocean on, so I have to say, oh, but also pagan. Just because everyone else would call themselves an atheist. And I also do various different things like gaming on the channel. Very limited time to do response videos, but it gets political. It gets touches upon people's morals, ethics, that sort of thing. But I want to take it in a new direction. I don't want to go over that old ground. I always try and assume that people have a certain amount of knowledge already about the guests themselves. So if you know something about, let's say, Cosmic Skeptic, I want to get back on. He will, since he was last on, has come forward with quite a lot of this vegan stuff. So I want to try and just poke and prod and see if he could succumb to various forms of meat eating under certain circumstances. And I prophesize that if it's made in the right way, then something like lab-grown meat could be argued to be more moral than veganism. But my ultimate opinion is that neither are as healthy as doing both. So I quite like to go into that sort of direction. I like to speak to, let's say, people like Lloyd Evans on the football, because that's not talked about in Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's instead of saying, "Oh, look at these Jehovah's Witnesses, they're not talking about football and they're not allowed to grow beards or whatever." I like to say, "Well, look, what football team do you support? And what was this like growing up? Why are you Manchester United supporter? Blah 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 blah." And we just go off on tangents. I couldn't argue that any podcast is too similar to any other one.
Yeah, you talk about things.
One of the things that I enjoyed about your channel is you do have atheists on, but you tend to not talk about atheism. You tend to talk about them as people, not just whatever their belief system is.
Sure, I really try hard not to talk about it. There are certain moments where I have to. I always remember the 2 hours I had with Frustrated Atheists, where we went over these apologists for the Quran, and they were pointing out, Surah 434 doesn't mean you're allowed to beat your wife. It means that you're allowed to kick them out of the home. And it's like, oh, that's okay then.
Yeah,
that's definitely better.
Well, that's some great
in a society where women aren't allowed to leave the house on their own.
Great apologetics. You can't leave the house on your own, but we're gonna kick you out.
So we're gonna kick you out so other people can beat you for us.
There you go.
Cool.
But they later retracted and said, "Oh no, it's okay to beat them as long as it's with a toothbrush or something." It's like, what? Like, seriously? But yeah,
Godless Scummer for 5 is wants you to know, David, that he's eating prawn cocktail crisps.
That was good, actually. Oh, before we get started,
it
is Caffeine Corner, so we have to ask you, David. What are you drinking? I'm having coffee, but since it is a UK, did add what UKers would call coffee flavoring. We call it spiced rum here, but close enough. So I don't know. It's Sunday, right? So I was gonna have a beer this morning too. So it's Jess. It was kind of funny. We're like, it's UK edition. Let's have beer instead of caffeine. But I needed caffeine this morning. So
it was a late night last night.
What are you drinking? What is it?
Ribena. It's a popular blackcurrant juice drink.
Oh, nice.
Brand in the UK.
Has it got caffeine in it?
I don't think so. Although I have had a lot of tea.
Have you seen our show? Do you know where you're at? I mean,
it's okay. He was drinking tea before we started. Remember?
Well, he's British, yeah.
I'm having Lady Grey that I chocked full of amaretto.
Ooh. Okay. I can't quite remember the difference between that and Earl Grey, to be honest.
Earl Grey is like the more flowery flavor, and Lady Grey is citrus.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Helios for 575 for 10. Helios 575 for 10 said, "This is for Leslie because someone decided to have that live stream at midnight when I was already asleep. You know how disruptive it is to a sleep cycle when a piss break becomes 2 hours long."
I will try to get that to her. I honestly, what happened was last night, I used all my PayPal to send to her because it was more than I expected. I have to replenish my PayPal. I will get it to her. Yeah.
Steve underestimated
the
internet.
And that's fine. Oh, I'm happy. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is awesome. So thank you all last night for that fundraiser for Leslie. That was impressive that people stepped up and wanted to show that we're not going to be silenced and we're not going to be intimidated, which, by the way, we're going to talk about not the whole Katie thing tonight, but we're going to talk a little bit about other silencing going on in the community with Essence of Thought later on. But we're going to start off with Brexit. That's the original thing that we brought Dave on because he's British. And for some reason, all the British people know about Brexit, and all the American people have no idea what the hell this is because
it's
sure the hell
really
don't.
Confusing.
It's really confusing. So
yeah,
maybe you can kind of walk us through us from the beginning of what the hell is it? Why did it get voted on? Why do people want to leave? Yeah, what's up with you people over there?
Well, how long have you got? So I should say before I start, it's probably best for you to try and get something up on the screen, which is a mega complicated Venn diagram of the Council of Europe. If you just search Council of Europe on Google, you'll find the image, and then you'll be like, what? So that's the level of complexity that it goes to. So leaving the EU has been something that has been discussed way before I was born.
Oh God.
Yeah. And it's something that has been effectively an in fight within the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party are what would probably be more politically aligned to the Democrats, to be honest. Given, oh, that's not the one I was thinking of.
That's
There's a bit nice, colourful one with all the flags of Europe
Oh,
on it.
you want this one? Gotcha.
I like this one actually. This is confusing enough.
Oh, it's okay. I can make it more confusing. Hold on.
Oh yeah,
So please continue.
yeah, that's right. So this has been the downfall of many a Conservative leader. That one, Patrick. Many a Conservative leader for a number of years, and as such, it came to a head once we started to have referendums for everything. We started to have the coalition between the Conservatives and the Lib Dems, who are not quite the same as the Libertarians. But they started having a referendum on the way we vote. They had an AV vote as the first vote I voted in. It didn't win, but it was a different way of voting other than first past the post. It then went over into the Scottish referendum for independence in 2014. Then there was a general election in 2015, to which Cameron very marginally won a majority, but he said in his manifesto that he would promise a referendum.
By the way, you may not want to use the word manifesto talking to an American audience. It means something completely different.
No.
That's fine.
I think
That's fine.
I think we're intelligent enough to not have to be concerned about that.
Have you seen our audience? Really? No, I'm just kidding. By the way, I did put this.
How dare you?
I know. I'm putting this on the screen real quick, and I'll take it down. Just the thing that you had me download, that the flags. I don't know what any of this means.
Oh,
but holy crap!
I linked it in the chat, so anybody can keep it up if they want to.
Yeah, that's just bizarre.
Yeah. No, hold on a second. Let me get rid of the live chat just momentarily, and then I'll finish my sentence and I'll go into that diagram. I guess it is a bit. It looks a bit more complicated than it actually is. So they ended up. David Cameron tried to appease his backbenchers by saying we would have a referendum on membership of the EU. In 2016, we had that referendum, and people had voted to leave. Now, there are various reasons, and I'm going to try and stay as rational as I can for both sides. Now, the problem I have is the way in which the result was acquired. There have already been various different things that have come forward and proved that clearly outline that illegal means have been used to launder money, to overspend, to steal people's data through Cambridge Analytica and Facebook and that sort of thing. The same people in charge of the same campaign, which is, by the way, Boris Johnson, who led the campaign, they are the same people that are now trying to prorogue Parliament. They're the same people that are trying to... actually, they did that twice because they tried to trigger Article 50 without Parliament's consent.
I remember that.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
that's why that was the court case with Gina Miller and being forced to... I mean, it's just a technicality. It's fine if they want to continue to do it, but you got to go about doing it in the right way. And their blatant disregard for the law is one of the reasons why I think the result from 2016 is void. But before people start to jump on me in the live chat, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should just default to Remain and pretend like everything's fine.
Right. Yeah. It means you should start the restart the system or start it in a more legitimate way where you don't have criminals running it.
Yeah. And to try and because I could just end up talking forever, but to conclude, we're now at the point where we had a general election 2017. 2018 didn't nothing happened as far as I'm aware, but then 2019 we've had local elections, EU elections to elect members of the European Parliament, and now we're having a general election, which will end in 11 days.
Oh God.
So, yeah,
Oh no. And
it's
so do you
hugely
have?
complicated, and I haven't even gone to that graph. That's
Yeah.
I'm
and
already
have you-
confused. I gotta
do
tell
you
you,
think-
Brexit's the most confusing thing I've ever heard in my life.
Do
yeah.
you think that Brexit, or do you think the new election where do you think it's going to go? Like, how do you think it'll change things, or if it will?
Well, yeah. To clarify the because I haven't actually explained it yet. The EU, the European Union, is a collection of countries. It's more like if you can get that diagram back up, it's easier to compare it to all the other groups that are there. It's really more of the political wing of the Council of Europe. So if you're say if you want a say in anything that happens concerning the laws that are governed, I think it would be something like Article 13 that's coming in for YouTube at the start of this year, start of 2020. That sort of thing has to go through the EU. That's the organisation it goes through.
Gotcha.
And so there's, as far as I'm aware, there's 7 groups within that. So there's 3 of them that are, if I get my words right, the council, which is the country's leaders, the prime ministers, the presidents, all get together. Then there's the the legal side of it. They end up in the commission, and they end up passing things through from those leaders that discuss general ideas. They put it into writing that then the parliament, the people we elect to European Parliament, then vote on. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And during that stage, the council, which is the presidents and prime ministers, any of them can veto at any moment. So they have complete power over everything that goes through the EU. It then goes to the parliament once they're happy, once it's in writing, whatever. It then gets voted on in the parliament. So you can think of the parliament as the UK Greens will sit with the German Greens and the
Gotcha.
etc.
I understand. Yeah. So it's all, like all of the countries sets will have a group that goes to the parliament to represent their country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In case people are interested, I did do a video explaining this and explaining the Venn diagram and everything like that. I'll have to try and find the link to it. Maybe somebody in the live chat can find it.
I can probably find it.
Some point around May, June. Where was I going with that? So your initial question was, I can't remember.
I was saying the new elections coming. How do you think they'll change anything, or if they will? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it's pretty big because Theresa May tried to get her Brexit deal through. I think it was about 3 times, and then it sort of accidentally went through a 4th time and got rejected again, if I'm right in saying. And then Boris sort of tweaked it a little, kind of superficially, really, and that went through on its first reading. So for something to become a law, excuse me, starting to get hiccups, it has to go through our parliament a number of times. So our parliament's made up of the Commons, which is our prime minister and all the other elected MPs. Then it has to go through the Lords, which is sometimes unelected people. Some people are given peerages for whatever reason. They could be an expert in their field. It could be Lord Sugar. It could be, whoever it is. So it has to go through the Commons 3 times. It has to go through the Lords 3 times. Then amendments are made, and then the Queen signs it. The Queen signs it. Boris got it through the Commons once, so it still has to go through the Commons twice, and then the Lords 3 times. But he doesn't have a majority to do that because he's been losing MPs because they've been defecting to other parties, to independents all year. That's been the story of this entire year for Parliament. Now, the reason he's having the general election is because he doesn't have that majority to continue the process always all the way to the end. So the general election could result in status quo, in which case we just keep extending Article 50 forever, in perpetuity, if you will, for 3 months at a time. And then we're just sort of stuck. If Boris gets a majority, which is was predicted by a recent YouGov poll, he was predicted to get 359 seats. He only needs 320 odd, which would be a very comfortable majority for him. But there's been various different things that have been happening. Terrorist attack yesterday in London. Somebody got shot. I think a couple of people died from knife wounds. So there's various things like that which are still shaping the campaign. But there's been a huge swing in certain areas to Lib Dems, which are the third option behind Labour. So usually it's a fight between Conservatives and Labour. Lib Dems have dwindled because of the coalition and their involvement within that, and particularly with my generation and tuition fees going up to £9,000 a year from £3,000, and that was a big issue for them. So
yeah,
they're trying to get their reputation back. All they're doing in this election is just one thing. They want to remain. That's it. That's their manifesto. That's one thing, basically. Maybe with green stuff and climate change, maybe, but it's Brexit, right? So the reason I bring that up is because an area like mine, which is, I can say it's Wokingham, this is an area that has always been conservative. Every MP for the past 100 years has kept their seat for 30, 35 years. It's just been consistent, 58% of the vote every general election. The poll that was done a few weeks ago said that they are down to 42%. Lib Dems are now back all the way up to 38%. So there's such a tight squeeze, and I've received so much correspondence from the Lib Dems over the past couple of weeks. So areas like this, particularly for people like John Redwood, who is my MP, is very pro leaving everything, no deal, just wants to just leave everything right now. No Boris deal, Theresa May deal, just wants World Trade Organization rules. As such, he's getting a bit of backlash for it because we are an area that voted to remain, by like 55% or whatever it was. And so there are key areas that do seem like they could go
push it over the edge. Yeah.
Then all those MPs just start to trickle back down again. It all depends about whether the Brexit Party with Nigel Farage can get any seats. I'd be surprised if they don't. But then they're MPs for what could be the next 5 years. And they're deciding on all sorts of things, NHS, housing. It's not just Brexit. So it's hugely complicated. I know that was a long answer. But
UK if you think American politics are difficult, America's got nothing on the UK.
Yeah, I'm trying not to zone out either. But
even Canada politics are more complicated than the American politics, because American politics, you don't actually get to decide anything. You vote for some people that pick for you.
You know how we talk science and people say they just have no idea what the hell we're talking about half the time? Now I know how they feel. I'm just absolutely so... I don't understand any of this. I barely understand American politics because American politics is convoluted. But we took civics. I took some courses. But British politics, it's like, and yet you guys probably have the better system.
Yeah, I mean, things do get challenged.
I don't know. I got a little bit on that. These people have complete veto power. Any one of them can veto. That definitely bottlenecks things.
Well, yeah, I don't know how they get anything done, but I like the adversarial nature of the House of Commons.
Oh, they do.
I like that. I wish we had something more like that. Yeah.
David Cameron. We've only used our veto once, and it was David Cameron just before the referendum.
Yeah.
So it's there just as a safeguard, but it's not.
Oh, that's good. That's good, because I can see that going south real quick. but it definitely ends up with a broader spectrum. Whereas America's got two parties, and then it's got the Electoral College, and the Electoral College does not have to vote for what the people
Well, the
chose to vote them in for.
superdelegates don't, but the dedicated
Yeah.
delegates do. So
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
yeah, and there's like a handful of nuanced things, whereas in Canada it's just completely different. Ours is a little bit closer to UK Parliament because we also have a Parliament
But
Yeah.
it does sound like
and
it's
more than
all,
two parties.
it does all sound like there's a
Yes.
it's this. Okay, I hate to say that, but it's all politicized. But it's a power
Of
grab.
course it is.
You know, you have all these people wanting
In
power.
politics.
Yeah, really, right? But okay, so just real quick, walk me through the different things that there's like deal, no deal, modified deal.
Oh, sure.
There's a whole bunch of different things. And first, they have the election, or they have the referendum where they voted to leave, right?
Yep.
And from my understanding was half the people didn't even know what they were voting for. They just let's do it. It wasn't seem to be.
We have to be very careful with making such a claim.
That's the way I interpret it because again,
Yeah.
people are like, a lot of people are saying, what did we just do? But
I think it was a question in the form of a claim.
Yeah.
This is my understanding.
Yeah,
Am
this
I
is my
correct?
understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's various different wonderful interviews from people like and this name will trigger some people. James O'Brien on his LBC show. By the way, Nigel Farage is Nigel Farage is also somebody who's got a show on LBC, his radio show. So James does talk over people too much, but he does end up talking directly to call in whoever it is, and Brexiters do call in. And so there are some that come forward, and there's viral videos where he's asking them, so why did you vote for Brexit? It's because I want to have more control over our laws. Now, that's a very general statement. You want the idea that we control what laws govern us. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But when all you have to do is dig deeper and ask them, okay, which EU laws do you not like? And they crumble, they fall apart, they can't name one. And that's what people mean by they didn't know what they voted for. It's not because people don't have like a gut instinct, a feeling for or against a particular issue. It's that ultimately people feel like this, in some respects, goes all the way back to Thatcher. Like, it goes deep with quite a few of the older generation, and I can understand why. But to then make the false equivalence of saying, well, actually, the EU is just another layer of bureaucracy on top of
Right.
everything else, which distances me from the power that controls me. I don't buy that.
Yeah, because it's not as
all
it's
these
not that
people-
simple, right? It has to be a coalition because the world is so
Yeah.
much larger now. You can't be that small. The world isn't as small anymore. It's, as soon as
Yeah.
you try and leave something like that, you lose so much, and you do not only do you lose out in trade, but you lose out in how much money you have. Your country becomes a lot more poor because now you're no longer working together. You have to work as an individual. Now, my take on Brexit, and I just want to get your thoughts on sort of my take a little bit, because I'm going to go real simple, and and I just want to see what you think.
Keep it simple
And-
for me, please, and then we'll get the super
no,
chats.
I will. Brexit, as far as I've been able to tell, has been the single most convincing reason I have ever seen to put an age cap on voting the other way.
so what? Are you saying like over
right.
60 you don't get a chance to vote?
Because
I don't know how
essentially-
seriously I'm meant to answer that question.
A little bit. It's a little bit. You don't have to be
Ageist.
totally serious. But what I'm
So
saying
actually,
is that you've got a large there, because it's a little bit of a silly jab, but it's also like
Yeah.
got some underlying actual issues inside of it, right? Because you've got an
Sure.
older generation that has a huge amount of different ideals, making decisions for people that are going to have to live through the consequences of their decisions that they're not going to have to. You see the same thing happen with climate change voting right now in the
Yeah,
in
so-
the United States.
So on age voting and climate change. So those that don't believe in climate change obviously don't feel the need to have a European Parliament to address it,
Right.
because they don't think it's an issue. So that's just another reason why the left would, or typically the left would prefer a more pro EU. And there's a lot more reasons, obviously, but you can see why people wouldn't feel the need to have it. I did speak about this with Alex O'Connor on the channel for DRP7 way back this time last year, and he was outlining where do we draw the line with age voting, because there's a big thing on the left at the minute typically that says 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds should get the vote. It's currently at 18, should be lowered to 16.
Yeah, I've heard that argument.
Yeah, my position is, if you are old enough to pay taxes, you are old enough and probably not necessarily educated enough, but at least old enough to decide which government spends that tax dollar money.
Yeah, no,
I think
that's
Steve and I have actually had this argument before.
Yeah, no, and I don't think Chester and I actually really diverged too much.
No,
I think we both agree.
We ended up coming to an agreement at the end.
We had a dialectic.
It was essentially what it came down to. Is I was saying I would have no problem if they lowered the voting age all the way down to 16. Now in Canada it's 18, so it's a little bit less of the jump, but it would be a really large jump in America because I'm pretty sure your voting age is 21, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it 18 for you as well?
Voting, as far as I remember, is 18. Yeah.
In America, though?
Yeah, it would.
America's 18.
America's 18. Okay, so 18. It would be a drop from 18 to 16.
21 to drink, but 18 to
21 to drink. So, and essentially the agreement we ended up coming to is like, you don't just all of a sudden tell 16-year-olds now to vote. What you do is you build civics into the educational system earlier on, so that way they actually understand, and then let them volunteer and do the elections and presentations themselves through grade 9 and grade 10, and then by grade 11 they're voting.
Yeah, completely agree.
Let's get some super chats out of the way.
I don't know if I can see the oh no, I can. The last one was Ghost Recon, right?
Yeah, that's when we left on. Yeah. Okay,
perfect. So Ghost Recon for 199 super delegates are a democratic only thing. And then Ghost Recon for 499. Question: if you aren't being adequately represented, should that not be enough?
Actually, Ghost Recon, but the wrong one. He says $2. Morning, guys. You forgot about that one.
We got Godless Gummer for 2. Sorry, David. Corbin for PM.
Yeah, and Lynn Hart.
And then Lynn Hart for 5. Sucks to hear about your Twitter. It's kind of poetic that you with high moral ethics is the target of unethical attacks. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
Yeah, make a good point.
Yeah, appreciate that. I get targeted, and
we get knocked off of Twitter all the time.
I'm in Twitter jail. Usually it's 24 hours, but I'm in Twitter jail for 7 days now. Chesh got 7 days. Sarah Michelle's got 7 days. Before many times. Michelle lost one account, so did Anti-Ordinary. It's weird how
it's gone right now.
You're just making me feel
She's
bad.
Just done.
But isn't it saying something that we
argue harder on Twitter?
we do with words, right? And yet they do with trying to mass flag and trying to shut people down. Yeah, it's
Helios 575 for 5 says, my question is, how does breakfast? How's breakfast?
I haven't had one
I'm
yet.
hungry.
Yeah, really. This is why we don't do shows on Sunday normally.
How does Britain plan to stay a world power post Brexit, because they are going to be at an extreme disadvantage in the world economy? Before you answer that, I'm going to let you think about it for a second, because that's a big question. We had the reason why we get knocked off of Twitter so much is because they know that we're not going to false flag them, but they know that they can essentially fight dirty, which is why I've kind of made a point multiple times, especially by now, that when you target somebody to be flagged and you tell other people, that is targeted harassment, which is against the terms of service. So if you do see that happening, if you see someone having an argument and they're like, and then they go on their own to go say, hey, go false flag this person, they're misrepresenting gender, when all they're doing is having a discussion, whether or not the discussion is a little bit vitriolic or not, that's a different issue. But if and they're having a discussion about, oh, well, we don't agree with the way you're using these terms, so we're going to flag you even though you're having a discussion about the terms, that's against the term. That's against Twitter's terms of service. That is false flagging. That is targeted harassment. And so if you do see that going on, you know, I'm not telling you need to go do anything, but it is against the terms of service and is actually a flaggable offense.
We're going to get into a little bit of that after Brexit, a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But I again, okay, so we got a question on the table for David from Helios. How does Britain plan to stay a world superpower post-Brexit, because they are going to be at an extremely disadvantage in the world economy? Great question, actually.
It is a really good question.
Sure. Very quickly before I answer that, I didn't quite hear the comment about Corbyn. I think I could answer that in like 10 seconds.
They want Corbyn for PM.
Yeah, they said sorry. It was Godless Scummer
saying sorry. He wants Corbyn to be PM. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so technically speaking, yes, I accept that. Only the only way that realistically that we would ever remain would be to have Corbyn as Prime Minister, and then he's currently trying to be neutral, but he's promising a referendum. Now, he's someone who campaigned for leave for a number of years, is now leader of the Labour Party. They want to remain. So he's being, quote unquote, neutral where others are not. And so I guess I do trust him to deliver whatever the result of such a referendum would be, and I think it would be wise to have another referendum. So I'm happy if he were to be Prime Minister. He's much more Bernie-like than anyone else. But to answer the question on the disadvantage of what was it? World power post Brexit. Now this, this is difficult because I don't know if I've actually said it. I am a Remainer, and I've always been a Remainer. I'm still a Remainer, and I want to try and be as rational as I can and remove as many biases as possible. But it does appear that given the amount of agreements that we would drop out of, let's say, as far as I'm concerned, if we went out on World Trade Organization rules with no deal and we failed to get through any deal before January 31st, and we just fell out of the EU, we would be leaving, I think it's 759 treaties overnight.
Wow, that's a lot.
Some people are arguing that that is a good thing, and that gives us more control over what we,
I mean, arguably, it would do both, right? It would give you more control and less control because now those treaties are no longer in place, so you have to rebuild everything from the ground up.
Yes, with however many countries. And trying to get those trade deals in place can take over a decade.
Yeah.
So
because you then have to go to each individual country that you left as a coalition and make agreements with each of them as individuals now. Yeah.
So just to clarify as well, on a slight off point, that's the same problem that the Scottish National Party are having, and they're being asked in this general election, because if they do have, what they're threatening is another Scottish independence referendum as a result of all of this. That's because of what could be potentially leaving the EU on basically any deal, because they would prefer to remain, and they overwhelmingly in Scotland want to remain. But in order to do that, they would end up, let's say right now, if they were to leave the UK, they would drop out of the EU and then try to rejoin, if that makes sense.
Right, they would have to leave and then come back. They can't just like sidestep out, unless there's some kind of way they could finagle around that, which I can't imagine that there wouldn't be. But what advantage would that be to either side? What if? Right, arguably they might say, "Oh no, we're not going to let you just sidestep over because we can negotiate you down and get more out of you to get you to convince you to come back in, like if you want to convince us to let you back in, sort of thing."
So to go back to the economics of it, I'm sorry if I'm going to be too vague, because I don't actually, I've got to simplify it for Steve. That's my.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
I'm really
This is like-
enjoying
this is-
actually having a discussion where Steve's just completely fucking lost.
It's like when I try to like dump things down for like certain people for science and philosophy. I'm like, this is what you got to do to me, Dave. I am literally the dumbest person in the room when it comes to this particular topic, and I'm happy.
Oh
to
yeah,
know it.
sorry. Just
Yeah.
want to clarify for the chat. You cannot negotiate any EU country on its own if you're outside the EU. It's a block or nothing. I'm talking like a hypothetical.
Yeah, because people are talking about Scotland, and for correct me if I'm wrong, Scotland was one of the very few that wanted to stay, and everybody else was kind of leave, and so Scotland was thinking about like becoming separate from everything
Scotland
else too,
becoming
right?
its own and then joining the
Yeah,
EU.
and join the EU, right?
So in order to clarify that last point about the blocks, going back to that Venn diagram, which now seems very simple, you end up having all these different areas you could go into. So from memory, the European Free Trade Area, EFTA, I think that's where countries like Norway are. So the Norway deal is something that was discussed before the referendum, incidentally by the people that are now claiming that we always wanted no deal. But that is a situation where they have some more control over, I think it's fishing and agriculture, but they don't get their vote. They're not part of the EU. They get these rules imposed on them. They're not part of the parliament. They don't elect MEPs. They don't have a veto.
That's kind of.
And they're saying that Norwegian people are saying that this is actually quite bad. We'd probably prefer to have a vote, have a say over what is being imposed on us. So if we leave in any way and we're not part of the EU, we're going to be stuck in a situation whereby we're going to have to adhere to these rules, but we're not going to have any power or say over what they are.
Yeah.
And in fact, we are losing power by leaving. So there's EFTA.
Like it or not, you play on a national stage.
Yeah, there's the Eurozone, which uses the euro. There's the Schengen area, which is basically a borderless area between, I think it's like France, Spain, Italy, like that little block, Switzerland. And so there's all sorts of little things like this is where immigration is more relaxed. This is where like everyone's in the single market together and they agree to lower each other's brain's gone. What's the name of it? Trade barriers and that sort of thing. If you're in the customs union together in another little Venn diagram, that means that if something is imported from another country, like Japanese cars being imported to the UK, if you then wanted to pass them on and sell them to Germany, you don't have to pay another import tax.
Right.
So there's things like that which makes trade a bit more seamless. So
real quick on the trade, how does, because a lot of people were talking about medical stuff like insulin when it came to some of the trade stuff.
Yeah,
because it raises the prices obviously up dramatically when you're paying a tax on the, it has to go to here, pay tax, then it goes to here, pay a tax. So if they stay in the EU or they leave the EU, is that what's going to happen? Is the import export taxes going to be so incredibly ridiculous just to get stuff into Britain that is that kind of what's been going on? Is that they're kind of afraid of?
Britain's money will also take a hit, right? Like their value.
The economy is going to go. Yeah, that's.
I've made just so you know, I've made what is that the bottom? Yeah, that's the bottom. So this is reasons to be against Brexit. So there's all sorts of things. Now, okay, maybe I'm going to come across a bit biased here, but
you're allowed to.
The inflation of food prices, the limited stock is mainly what's important, not necessarily the price of the medicine. You had in Theresa May's government just only a couple of years ago, whoever the relevant secretary was boasting that they had now become the biggest buyer of fridges for the NHS for all of the stocks that and supplies that we're going to have to try and collect for medical reasons, and that's that sort of tells you everything about whether this is a good idea. There's various different other things deflated on the actual day of the referendum. So by the time it got to the markets opening on the 24th of June, on that Friday, the pound had lost 30%.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
So there's something similar that's sort of been predicted, and at that point you would expect the dollar to overtake the pound,
Yeah.
which is an odd thing to think because I didn't realize at the turn of this century you could get $2 to a pound.
Yeah. Always
Yeah.
been. It's always
So
been like that.
And
just
yeah, keep in mind,
dropped
remember
dramatically.
earlier I said that the older people are the ones not going to have to deal with these consequences. This is the kind of stuff I
Yeah.
mean. They're no longer or at the edge of the working class at this point.
So you
Yeah.
want to stay then, Dave, right?
I think it's the
personally.
most sensible thing to
But
do,
is that an
given that
option?
we've
I mean, I thought
well, we've
Brexit.
had a,
I thought the Brexit vote was they have to go. Is how are they going to go with a deal or without a deal? But there was a chance they could still stay in the EU. Or I thought that was done.
there's still a chance. It's I guess the longer this process goes on, the more chance there is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's been delayed 3 times now. We were meant to leave 20 was it? It was vote 2016 triggered. Yeah, it would have been March 29th this year. We should have left.
Yeah, because I
And then
remember
we were
there
meant
was
to
the
leave
one
Halloween.
for March and then there was
We
one
didn't.
for October, right?
So that date's now been was moved to Halloween, which was the day before the new president started, I think, as per this year's EU elections. And now it's been delayed till 31st of January.
Yeah, and the more it gets pushed back, the more likely it is that they can just be like, you know what, kid.
And
Yeah.
how much money's been spent on it already? Where if they decide to stay,
I'm sure there's a counter somewhere. Somebody can find it in the live chat. One of the mods
What's
linked
it
to
called?
some website
Wow.
somewhere that's counting up how much money's been spent on this since 2016.
How much money has been spent?
It's something like at the minute, like it's got to the point now where the claim on the side of the bus by Boris about the 350 million for the NHS, that could have been paid for by not going through this process. Something like that. That sort of typical ironic statistic comes out.
That's.
I was going to say something.
Oh, here
else.
it is. I found it. Currently, it's just under 78 billion
Jesus.
not dollars.
That's a lot of money.
Here's the link.
That's a lot of money.
It's almost 79 billion.
Ridiculous.
Here's the link if anybody in the chat wants to double check. Yeah, it's just a counter. It's just going up. But I mean, at that point, is it just the gambler's fallacy? We spent so much money on it. I guess we have to do it.
It's sunken cost.
Oh, sunk cost. Yeah.
Yeah, sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, quite possibly. Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you're dropping out of so many different trade deals and treaties, then going back on World Trade Organization rules isn't going to be better. If World Trade Organization rules were better, then nobody would be in the EU. Right? Like that. It's just I don't quite understand how some people don't get that.
Yeah, well, it's really difficult. It'd be like, okay, so if you want to liken it to, for some of our American audience, it's like one of the states wanting to be on its own. You can't play on the national stage by yourself anymore. You'd then have to make deals with all of the countries around you and redo all of your trade, everything, and rebuild your own government and have your own military.
That's exactly what it'd be. Like Texas, if Texas seceded from the Union or something like that, because people are talking about that, this is that they would have to negotiate with each state. They would have to, it would be...
And they'd have to build entirely new infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the seamless border bit between all the states is much like the Schengen area, which we're not in as the UK.
Yeah, we have, like for example, we have a compact between states. Like if you get a driver's license in California, you're able to drive in other states, right?
I like to trigger Americans by saying their country doesn't have a name.
Marriage licenses are the same thing. You get married in like Hawaii, it's legal in every other state. This is why even like certain states that didn't have gay marriage before, they still had to recognize gay marriages for that very reason, and that was a very good thing. But could you imagine if each state had there no compact with each other states? Like this state agreed with this state, but didn't agree with this state, and they was recognized over here. It would be chaos. You couldn't have a functional society in America if that was the case. I mean, you could try driving across state and go, I don't have a license for this particular state, or you have to get a license for each time you go across state. It just wouldn't be feasible.
And let alone any businesses that are international or are like if you have McDonald's, the entire rules for McDonald's have to change because
Right.
now you're in an
Commerce.
entirely different country.
Absolutely. Commerce
So
and trade.
if you
Yep.
want anybody, so like say you wanted to bring new business to your new country, because there's a decent chance a good number of them will leave unless they're just going to be like, well, we're not going to be here. You have to figure out your rules now. So bye. Or give us a bunch of deals. And so now if you want McDonald's to stay in your country, you have to be like, okay, well, we're not going to charge you taxes.
Well, no, they do. They don't do it
They
by
do that
state per
sometimes
se.
in
They do it by
states,
yeah. They do it by city more than anything else. What cities
Yes.
will do is
But that will change drastically
Yeah.
if you secede.
what they do is they usually do tax deferment. They'll say something along the lines of, "Hey, look, we'll defer you paying city taxes for so long,
Right.
and then try to get the companies to come to the city." Palm Springs did that quite frequently. It's perfectly legal. But yeah, that would
How long is it before you guys are gonna like just give us Detroit because you don't want it anymore?
We'll give that to UK.
Oh, okay. So Detroit can be part of the UK. Canada's taking.
You guys
Florida
are just funny
because,
UK
because,
people. That's all you guys are. So
Oh my god. America has an official name. It's called South Canada.
South Canada. We're South Canadians.
One of my favorite things to do is when somebody says, "Oh, well, I'm from America," I say, "Which one?" And they go, "What?" Well, there's a North America and a South America. Which America are you from? Oh, North America. Okay, well, what part of it? The United States. Oh, so you're from the United States of Middle North America. Cool. Got it.
We actually have real bacon here.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it sounds it.
Don't even talk about your guys' bacon in the UK. I don't know what the hell that is. Bacon.
Yeah, I think it's more like a ham.
Yeah.
It has its place, but it's yeah.
We'll have that chat one day. We'll have that chat with Alex. We'll have that chat.
God's auditor. Geo said the USA have a name in exactly the same sense as Mexico. If the United States of Mexico can be called just Mexico, the United States of America can be called America. And then God's auditor said, Geo, wow, she triggered the German.
Yeah, by the way, happy birthday to Gio. It is his birthday today. I'll be on his channel, I think, my time. People are going to roast him. I'm not a funny guy, Gio, so don't expect a lot out of me. When you're basically inviting a Jew to go roast. Didn't work out well for my people last time. But I will be there, okay?
So, all right. I think have we gotten a decent sense of Brexit now? Because we have a whole nother slew of stuff to talk about, but we need to separate this.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts you wanted to touch on before we switch over?
I think I think the final thoughts.
Then we get to get into drama.
Yeah, I'll go into the issue of the Irish border because this one's might take a minute. So you've got the UK, which I've understood because I worked in America for a couple of summers. People just don't know what the UK is. So there's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is Scotland, Wales, England, and United Kingdom is with Northern Ireland. They, as the United Kingdom, have voted to leave, including Northern Ireland. Now, they want to leave, but Scotland and Northern Ireland voted to remain. The Republic of Ireland is part of the EU. If you want more control over your borders, you have to put it somewhere. And so you either have to put a border between the Northern Republic of Ireland, terrible idea for obvious reasons. You either have to cede or let Northern Ireland cede and have a hard border between Northern Ireland and the rest of Britain, even though they technically are part of the vote, and we just cut off our own arm, as it were. Or you might end up trying to get the Republic into the UK, and that's never going to happen. So where are you going to put this border?
Right.
Because you're going to inevitably have to put it between North and Republic of Ireland. There's already been people trying to claim to be the quote-unquote new IRA. There's people who are saying that, I mean, at the minute, I should explain for those, for some reason, who wouldn't know about the Troubles. There's a pretty much open border, as it were, for people who have to cross the border between the islands because of this exact reason, because of all the issues that happened towards, what was it, 90s, early noughties. And so that hasn't quite been resolved yet.
Right.
People claim that Boris's deal has. I don't think it has.
It's like if you cut off the top of Texas.
Like exactly.
The little square that comes up. If you were just to cut that off,
that's its own separate entity, country. It wouldn't be a separate state. It'd be its own separate country.
Yeah.
Now we do have something like that in the United States. I mean, there are like Native American lands considered to be sovereign.
Yeah, but they go under all of America's rules anyway. They have like exceptions for specific things. Not they're their own country. They don't have to have an army. They don't have to. They're a protected area by America and by Americans' government.
Right. But we protect Canada too. If people go to war with Canada, we have compact with you guys that will defend you for whatever reason. I don't know. Who the hell wants Canada? It's like we don't have to worry about that. It's like America, we always worried about being attacked, but who the hell ever says Canada's going to get nuked? Nobody wants to attack Canada.
Do you know who says that Canada's going to get nuked and who wants to attack Canada?
Who?
Americans.
After you did, well, look what you did to our White House.
You started it. Percy asked, "Can we ask David why he thinks the people really voted to leave? Is it just as warning that went way too far?"
Now, various different things could play into it. I think there's a huge part of it which was a anti-coalition, anti-David Cameron vibe, from what I got from people. And David Cameron was somebody who, foolishly, I think, ended up siding with Remain and saying things like it's going to be World War III, and you couldn't really trust him or George Osborne, who was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the money guy who does the budget every 3 months. You couldn't trust them to be on that side. So I think that pushed some people in the direction of leave. I think there's certainly to an extent a xenophobic vibe to it. People, if there was this phrase that was going around, I don't know how accurate it is, but not every Brexiteer is a racist, but every racist would vote for Brexit.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's because she sort of worked that bit out. That's because there is a degree of concern about immigration in general, and there was a fear that they are deflating wages and taking jobs from local Brits because they've been let into the country, they're unskilled, they're whatever, and then you go through every single group, and actually they are skilled. Like, we don't just let anyone in.
It's not willy-nilly.
The majority of immigration comes from outside the EU. And when they're talking about all these people, they're typically talking about what could be black people, Indian people.
It was the whole issue with the Syrian refugees when that hell happened.
Sure. And basically, the concern was mainly not to do with... not so much, I don't think, to do with that. I think that did play into it for sure, but I think there's a certain part of it that was saying we don't want these
outsiders coming in.
Yeah, whatever that may be. And every country in the EU is majority white. Yeah. So anybody who was saying things like all these, like they had
insert your choice of racial slur here.
Yeah, basically. So I'm trying to word this right. If somebody has a problem, if you're the sort of person who walks down the high street, sees more what could be, I mean, I'm from Hayes, so you just walk down the street, there's black people, brown people everywhere. It's normal, it's fine. I've grown up with it. Right. I've got no issue with it. But if you're somebody who's remembered that your town was like a certain way and it was majority white, and now you see a lot of people moving out because they're being priced out of the area or whatever reason,
You might
and
correlate it with
they
the
might
new
say,
people coming in.
yeah, and they've ended up saying, look, I don't quite like getting on the bus and hearing lots of different languages or something like that.
It actually does
Hmm.
spook people. It's because
Yeah.
they're not used to it, because and so your brain automatically is like, what, I don't understand what I'm hearing. So there's like,
Sure.
it's actually neurological. You actually have in general, if you're not used to it because it's something new, you're conditioned to essentially be wary of it right out the gate, and it's
Yeah.
really easy to play
And I
on
don't
that.
blame them for that. No, just to conclude, because I know we want to move on. Those people that then are against, hearing lots of different um, languages also at the same time see a coalition government that cut through austerity very heavily on these local communities. And it's an amalgamation of everything happening at once. It's the fact that they've lost their connection to the identity, the perceived identity of their country. My community centre got closed down from, not, I'm speaking not personally, but somebody's example of coalition cuts meant that happened, and that distances them, and then they hear more foreign voices, and it distances them, and they're suddenly the identity, what they associate is my country, just diverges, and
Right.
now they want their country back, and they want to take back control, as the campaign for vote.
Yeah,
vote
it's a feel
said.
of loss, not necessarily there actually is any.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
Perfect way to
it's an issue
sum
of
it up.
identifying whether or not what do I no longer feel like I belong here, and why is that? Well, I'm going to blame this thing that's right in front of me, not the actual reasons and why that may be the
It's
case, because it's
ultimately a non-sec.
yeah.
Is it a non sequitur?
It is.
Helios
It's
5.
saying these statements have happened, therefore, conclusion, they are to blame.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah. Helios 5755. To put Brexit into perspective, Britain has roughly the same area as, is that MN is Minnesota?
I don't know, but it's as tall as Texas.
Is
I
Steve?
know that much.
MN. Which state is it?
Oh, Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I didn't know what you're asking me. Yeah, it's Minnesota.
And if it was a state, it would have the second lowest GDP of all 50 2014 stats. That's interesting. And Mr. President, Mr. President 99 for 20 says there won't be a Brexit. It's a show. I am AJO, in my honest opinion. And even if not much will change, the UK had always made extra perks like keeping the pound, or they join the US. German view here. Sorry if these points are already debunked.
Joining the US.
I'm sorry, people have been adding me. I'll catch up in a second. I had the super chat pulled up.
That's right.
It's hard to keep up with all this stuff. There's lots. Eventually, we're going to have Polly Bullinator be producing this show. We'll freeze up us to do other stuff. But yeah, there's a lot. I'm getting inundated with messages too. So I'm trying to listen, and I'm actually trying to respond to people as well that are messaging me right now. But we are going to probably people want to start talking about.
Let's kick off the
stuff.
next segment a little bit. We got a question that was really good, and they were asking essentially if YouTube and Twitter have essentially like a feedback system or a punishment system for people who false flag.
If who has a punishment system?
Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. Is there any repercussions for people who are false flagging?
YouTube used to kind of have something along those lines if you use the YouTube reporting system, but other than that, I haven't seen.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
It's a one-way street.
It's really
kind of like
difficult.
not the copyright strike, the other one, the content
ID.
The content ID.
Yeah, that's completely different.
Yeah, if you do a copyright strike, there can be legal ramifications against you for doing so.
Yes.
But if you do a content ID strike, there is not.
Yeah, and people are kind of careful on this. For example, like we talked about Katie and her mass flagging. When people go on like Instagram and they'll advocate for like a mass flagging, that's difficult to get to like YouTube. No, right? And so they don't go, they go on
Yeah.
YouTube and they'll be like Katie does this all the time. She'll be like on her YouTube channel going, please don't mass flag, please don't report people, blah blah. And then she'll go on Instagram like 5 seconds later, I want everybody to go over and flag these people, kind of thing.
Yeah, well,
and
people
so that's
also
why it's hard.
people have been starting to figure out, because it happened to Onision, is that if you dox on one platform, then there may not be rules on other platforms or on the platform that you doxed on that say you can't do that, but the other platforms don't look kindly on you doing that in a place where you're allowed. So that's why he got kicked off of Patreon. So we want to go into EOT.
Yeah, David, I didn't sleep very well last night, and so I would occasionally like look over and man, you were busy last night on Twitter. I can't respond to anything. I can only do like DMs with people I know, but this whole essence of thought thing and has blown up again. He seems to be, for some of these, stoking a dead furnace, and I don't know why. So,
Oh, I can tell you why.
well, I mean, I kind of do. I mean, his reputation went to crap, and but I mean, like right now, people are calling out to have his Patreon kind of like I have some issues with. We'll get into, but what happened with all why is he, as I thought, making videos again? Why is he resurrecting this issue? Why is he going after Rachel Oates again? Silly to do, but
Are you asking me or are you asking David?
I'm asking David because David was really like all over this last night.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was thrown by you saying it's last night because it was this morning.
Oh yeah, welcome to my world. Okay, yeah, this it's only 9:30 for me right now.
Yeah, I was going to say I went to bed early. Like I was just too tired. Yeah, I saw Navadi's tweet about reporting Essence of Thoughts Patreon, and I've had a discussion with Sarah Michelle on Twitter about this as well, and she makes some great points. The reason that Navadia threw it up was because it appears, at least, to violate terms of service.
Hang on, Jeff.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
Yeah, I added Jeff here. He wants to talk about this. Jeff, you got some background noise. Can you mute until...
Jeff? I was popping to an area where I warn you, I'm outside. So if you get some background noise, I apologise.
Yep, if you can mute for a second just while David gets his thought out, and then we'll pull you in, okay?
Right, just give me a second, because I'm not very good with Skype, all right? So just
yeah. It's okay.
I love
Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Sorry, yeah. So I've also spoken to Jeff about it, and I agree with a lot of the points that they say. For me, the reason this crosses the line, nowhere near as close as like someone as like Onision has, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it crosses the line is because this video has been made with the explicit knowledge that this will affect Rachel. And Essence of Thought in the description has explained that I am now aware of the psychological issues and mental health issues or whatever that Rachel was going through and has been going through for some time, but still continued to put out the video. Now, if I was putting out such a video, I obviously, from Essence of Thought's perspective, must feel compelled to get certain information out there and to have a voice, to have a say. And I'm not arguing with that. People can still have a say. What the problem is then monetizing it and financially
profiting off of
from
it.
From that. And so it's one thing bringing up old drama, as it were. It's another thing actually benefiting from it. And if it breaks terms and conditions on Patreon, then...
Well, let me dive into it real quick, because I do know a little bit about this topic. Rachel was a friend of mine. Rachel came on this channel when she had like 2,000 subs, and I promoted her, and she just blew up, as I told her she would. I was like, you got talent, you're attractive, you're funny, you're personable, you're smart, you are going to do well on this platform if that's what you want, right?
You know, he promised me that, and I'm not even at 1,000.
People didn't know who you are.
Did he promise the world?
It's Steve's just using women.
I said no. Actually, what I said to her is, I don't know what gender you are. I don't know, your age. I mean, there's a lot of confusing things about chess. We're not quite sure.
Cheshire, get that in writing. 50%.
Writing.
50%.
No verbal contracts. But Jeff, can you mute me? Jeff.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, Jeff. Yeah. Jeff, go find.
Jeff is definitely at the pub.
Jeff, go
Jeff
find.
is at the pub.
Yeah, he's definitely at the pub.
Yes, I am. I'm trying to get to a quiet spot.
Yeah.
You gotta mute.
Gotta mute until you do.
Quiet
Sorry,
spot.
let me try something quickly. Right? Sorry, am I a bit
It's loud.
now?
That's better.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit.
I thought,
That's
sorry,
better.
sorry,
Go
I
hide in
thought
the
I was
back.
muted. Sorry, I thought I was muted, but oh good lord, everywhere I go it's just noise. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in on this like EOT stuff, and then obviously the Lance Gregorchuk stuff, which
People that may not know, this is Jeff. He's also known as Godless Scummer. I'm not doxing him. People know who he is.
Yep.
I just throw that out there when I use somebody's actual name, not doxing.
Yeah, so we're quite familiar with Rachel and the
Yeah.
situation. She essentially, what had happened is a friend of hers made a video talking about trans athletes in sport and got some things quite wrong. And the way it was presented was probably not the greatest, and so people jumped on a bandwagon of calling him transphobic. The person who started that bandwagon or has been driving that bandwagon has been at this Essence
Absolutely.
of Thought. And they began harassing Rachel, saying, well, what are your thoughts on this? You're friends with him. And essentially her response was, I don't know about sport. I don't know if what he's saying is or is not correct. I don't think he's transphobic. It seems to me from the information that I have gotten that he has gotten things wrong, but he's working on it, and he said apparently he's working on a new video, and that's all I have to say on the matter. They then harangued her for months. Apparently that wasn't good enough, claiming that, and Essence of Thought tweeted this directly, that she needed to, if she didn't disown Rationality Rules as a friend, then she's transphobic.
Yeah, it's a little more detailed to that too.
There's a lot to it.
In a nutshell, by the way, Helios $2. We're not 100% certain what species Cheshire is. Nobody knows. She doesn't even know. She's a weird hybrid of some kind. But here's the takeaway that when we get into this is that Rachel Oates is a very, very nice YouTuber. She doesn't. I mean, she doesn't have a mean bone in her body, right? And
sorry, am I back in, guys? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you're back. And
I'm trying to find a quiet spot because I'm out. So
sure.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
And so here's the thing that I'm trying to get apart to people. Rachel didn't get involved in this stuff. She asked not to be. And this is the way I look at something. And I like the way No Plum puts it. You know, you stick your head above the precipice, you're fair game. You stick your head up and you yell F you to people. People have the right to stick their head up and yell F you back, right? And this is the public forum. I'm in the public arena. When I'm not just a public person as having on YouTube, but we're actively engaged in controversy, and we know this. I know what I'm in for. Rachel didn't want any part of that. She doesn't do any of that kind of content. Therefore, as an ethical thing, she's off limits when it comes to that. If you're not,
she has done videos about trans issues, but they're usually someone is saying something awful about trans people, like saying they're going to go to hell or saying they're not people, and she's calls that out. But she has no knowledge of or
how it applies to sport.
In depth.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
EOT was basically trying to get her to disown a friend, and then was just berating her for no reason whatsoever. And this was noted by a lot of people, and it basically drove Rachel to self-harm. People have known now that she's somebody who self-harms, and it triggered her. And people. What really got me, what really set me off on all this, David, is the EOT's response after he found out about that. He posted a tweet about a blog, or excuse me, some article on how white women use tears to manipulate. It was the most egregious thing that I've ever seen in my life, of just somebody who's a sociopath, somebody who doesn't have a single bit of empathy whatsoever.
Yeah,
That's what got me.
And he went as far as to claim that these people are not just transphobic but violent.
Yeah, violent. Yeah, calling Rachel Oates a violent transphobe. I mean, God, what the hell? That's like bizarre.
And Rationality Rules as well. Who it's none of this is based in any kind of anything reasonable. But there was a they're rehashing. Well, Ethel is rehashing this, and they're bringing it up again is because nobody cares anymore. Like everybody has moved on, and their numbers have dwindled. Essentially, nobody's talking about them. Nobody cares about this issue anymore because, as far as everybody else is concerned, it's been dealt with. There's no reason to harass Rachel about this. There's still conversation going on about trans people in sports, which is fine. That is a conversation that is worth having, but it needs to be a conversation, and people have actually moved on to having conversation rather than just berating each other back and forth and false flagging and trying to harass each other and calling people bigots for the most part. The community have moved on, and so now they have made a video essentially trying to explain away why they used violent transphobe months after the fact.
Yeah,
months after.
So Dave, why is he bringing Rachel back into this? I mean, bad move. I mean, he has bad PR as it is, right? He probably lost a lot because of the attack mode that he was in. And Essence of Thought is one of those people that if you disagree with him, you're automatically a transphobe. It doesn't matter what it is. You disagree with him, he's going to label that. That's how he operates. He's not a good, effective person as far as argumentation. He uses what's called argumentium ad baculum, where you basically argument from the cudgel, believe me, or I'm going to stigmatize you. I'm going to try to call you these terms like violent transphobe. Yeah. Doesn't work anyway. That worked maybe 3 years ago on YouTube. It doesn't now. People have caught on to that type of argumentation. So he lost a lot of face with people. What is he hoping to accomplish by this? I mean, if he wants to talk about the trans athlete stuff, great. But whatever. But why is he involving Rachel in this? I think it's a very stupid move on his behalf.
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I think that there's been various different claims, and by the way, I'll have to go to the bathroom in a minute. Very rude of me in a live stream, but I think it's because Rachel has been put forward, as it were, whether this is actually true or not, as somebody who is the most vulnerable, and therefore a bully would just pick any target that they think is vulnerable. If there's somebody such as, I don't know, yourself, you're more likely to bite back. Mm-hmm. And Rachel doesn't necessarily bite anyone.
Mm-hmm. No, she points out, like, when people make comments to her, she'll talk about that stuff. But you're right, she's not a kind of person to fight back. She's not a pugilist like we are. She's not somebody who really. Yeah, she doesn't get down in the muck.
She's more likely to ask, "Why are you saying that about me?" than what one of us might be more likely to be, of being like, "You said this and you're egregiously wrong. Here's why." You.
Yep. Basically.
So she's more likely to try to engage in conversation to understand and go back and forth with understanding and instead of being like, "Suck it."
Yeah, I don't think she's even cursed. I don't know. But like I said, I think that
once or twice.
And sometimes you got to. Even Rachel can be pushed past the line on some of these comments that I've seen sent to her. But what happened was somebody was calling out to contact Patreon, Essence of Thoughts Patreon, and I understand why they did it. Right, I'm not faulting
Vardia.
For doing that, but I have some issues with it because one, you can't really convince Patreon based upon this kind of anecdotal evidence. It's we look at it and we understand what's really going on. They wouldn't. But is this something that EOT violated TOS, or was it more of an efficacy thing? I think it's more of an ethical thing. It's not like you said. Was it rising to the level of an Esion, right? But
yeah, that's the thing. You have to be really egregious to get there.
And it's just, what it's going to end up doing is feed into his persecution complex.
Yeah, I'll wait on us in a sec.
Go ahead, Jeff.
If I may go to the bathroom.
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
I know it's just going to say that.
First time I've ever talked to you in person, by the way, Chesh. So it's just meet you.
Hello.
Hi, but yeah, for my sins, because I've kind of followed the Onision drama. There's some very different things that have kind of gone on here. That as bad as Essence of Thought is, and I will say I think Essence of Thought is a scummy human being and is the lowest of low. But
I'm with you on
Onision
that.
is in a whole different, and I think Onision is in a whole another level.
Yeah.
But we've got to remember that Onision was caught blatantly doxing.
Yeah.
He was caught very blatantly with that. Now, my EOT hasn't been caught out in anything quite so blatant.
Yeah.
And I think another thing people need to take into consideration here is that very, very recently, a guy named Chris Hansen, who I'm sure you Steve and Chesh probably know from the US, but in Britain, Chris Hansen's not really known, but he's quite a well-known journalist in the US.
Mm-hmm.
He's got involved in this story, and he's kind of had a role in getting Onision's Patreon taken down. Because he's got the clout to do that.
Yeah, he has more than a role. He has this channel now called
Yeah.
Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, and he eliminated all his videos except videos dealing with Onision. He's interviewed Kai. He hasn't interviewed Kai yet, Onision's wife, but he's interviewed like what's her name, Shiloh, and he's done all these interviews with all these people that have been in relationships with Onision or especially the underage stuff, and yeah, it's blowing up, and YouTube has got to take notice because yes, Onision makes YouTube money, but at the same time, at what cost? I mean, the guy clearly is predatorial. I mean, nobody in the right mind would probably say otherwise at this point. Was his Patreon something they should go after? Probably in this case. I mean, Onision has reached that level, right? Because you said he has dox people, he's groom people. It is evidential, but EOT is not at that level. EOT is just a prick. He's not at that level that I think his Patreon should be affected. If people wanted to give him money, hey, go for it. What I would think is the better way to go is changing the hearts and mind of people and go, is this the kind of person that you want to support? Do you really want to be known as an EOT supporter? Because I know like Vadim has gone that route. Like Vadim, the Creationist Cats human. I've known Vadim for a long while. He's kind of got more SJW than he was before, and I think it's going to cost him. But he's trying to stand up for EOT, and I'm just like, dude, is this really what you want to do? Go for it, because this is your hill to die on. But that's the way I think we should have argumentation, not say, hey, you know what, let's go, try to get rid of somebody's Patreon. I'm not a big fan of that, because that's all that's going to do is just say EOT is going to go, I am so persecuted, and look what they're trying to do to me. And he loves that victimization. He thrives on victimization. It's his drug. It literally is his drug of choice, is victimization.
Sorry to butt in there, Steve, but I'm kind of in agreement with you on this because for a couple of reasons that I know just before obviously you came on stream, David, myself, Sarah, Michelle, we're having a kind of a conversation on Twitter about this, and I have to say I will admit I would love for EOT to be off the internet. Totally. I would love for Essence of Thought to be gone from the internet because Essence of Thought is toxic. Essence of Thought is a bully. However, and Essence of Thought hasn't kind of gone to that same kind of level people like Onision has gone to. Essence of Thought has been obviously careful not to like publicly send their followers after some people.
Well, they've definitely done it publicly, but they've managed to do it in a quiet, enough about way that it's not necessarily obvious, or there's at least a little bit of plausible deniability, or
we know more because we have an aggregate view.
I mean, without getting into another situation that you've been talked about on this channel quite a bit recently, they haven't been caught in the act, shall we say?
Sure.
like certain people, Katie, has been caught in, yeah, I mean, because for my sins, like as I said, from my sins, for some reason, I find the Onision drama kind of fascinating. I don't know why, but
I don't.
and
I
I've made
I think
a number
I
of
think it's
videos
sad.
about that. But yeah, actually, can I just say something whilst I'm on your channel here, Steve? Because you've got a much wider audience than I have. Could I just point out something to creators, YouTube creators at the time, and if any of you are watching this, who are on YouTube, create content and are covering the Onision story, please be aware he is DMCAing people again.
Oh.
He's put a copyright strike on Cult of Dusty of all people, and
Cult of Dusty was supporting him.
Yeah, but Dusty, Dusty played like a minute of a clip that he was. No, I mean, I'll say Dusty was saying that he was a prick. Actually, to be fair, I watched it.
Oh,
But,
maybe he's kind of turned things around because he used to be a little more supportive of him.
Yeah, I think
Dusty and I had a Facebook fight basically about this whole stuff. Because I've known Dusty a long time. He's on my Facebook and kind of a frenemy type. But
I mean, I'll say this: Dusty played honestly less than about a minute or so of his footage, and Onision copyright strikes him. And I personally think it's more.
Onision. I thought you were talking about Essence of Thought. Onision struck Dusty?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Oh.
Yeah, Onision struck Dusty. I mean, I'll say Dusty's was kind of taking that as a bit like, hey, whatever. He's not really taking it seriously. It's like, but I think it's kind of Onision striking people because of from what I gather, there's two kind of things. If you're monetized, like you strike people to either get it down or you take their money from it.
Content ID match.
I think I think that's what Onision's trying to do, because he's obviously lost his Patreon and he's obviously just on a very, very desperate. Because hey Greggy Poo, you're going to need fees for legal fees very soon. If everything is to be believed, but so it's just a fair warning to go out there if anyone's covering Onision. If you use any of his footage, yes, he will probably copyright strike you. So I just want to get that warning out.
All right. Yeah, I don't do anything with. And by the way, you got a weird high pitched noise, Jeff. But I don't play any of these stuff. I'm not even interested in the whole thing. I mean, I am in the fact that I think he's a predator. I think he's pedo. I think he's just a horrible human being, and I hope that they take his thumbs and basically screw him down metaphorically and put him in jail. I'm cool with that. I don't care enough to even deal with this whole story because I think it's so visceral, and so many other people are covering it. Not my jam, right?
It would be interesting to see a video covering like the psychology of of what's happened over the years of just covering only Onision. But yeah, other than that, it seems like I don't think we're gonna do that. That's not really our jam.
I really don't. I know his history a little bit. I'm not oblivious of the guy. It's just that I don't even want to bring attention to him. It's just he's just so he's just not a good person, right? And I hope Chris Hansen takes care of it. I think that there will be charges eventually brought because Chris Hansen's right now I was watching his videos last night. I think he has like 9 interviews with people. I mean, that's just pretty damning. So
I'm a little bit more curious. So I've attempted, essentially what I've started doing on Twitter specifically is whenever engaging this group of people like Essence of Thought and Christiosity and any of this like more extreme SJW sort of conversation that ends up coming up because they do have habits of false flagging you or trying to bait you into saying something that they can flag. That's what happened to Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And
it happens.
what I've started doing is essentially I'll have one or two tweet conversation with them, and usually it doesn't take much longer than that to figure out that they're just straight up dishonest, and then I just block them. Which my block list has been made public for anybody who wants to avoid these kinds of conversations or avoid these kinds of people, or if they want to engage in them, you're free to go check that out if you're interested. The link is somewhere in my Twitter. I'll probably post it again after this just for the sake of it, just because now I've brought it up, and I guess it's my responsibility to do so.
I had nothing to do with that. People still like relating that to me. Chester's her own individual. I know people think. By the way, somebody made the greatest comment on one of the videos the other day, Chess, and I didn't even point it out to you, but yeah. They're now calling Cheshire my shoe on head. And I thought that was cute, actually.
I haven't watched enough shoe,
too.
but I'll take it as a compliment.
No, it is. I like shoe on head, to be honest.
I've only recently started watching a little bit of her content, and she's pretty funny most of the time. I actually need to tweet at her a picture that I painted because I saw her video about boobs are too big.
She's my guilty pleasure. I gotta admit, I don't know why I like June's videos so much. I've never been a big fan of Greg, Armor Skeptic, but he was on the
Yeah, I'm not a big
show.
fan of Armor Skeptic either, but she's pretty funny.
She's pretty funny. She says what I think sometimes, and so that's why I like. But anyways, Dave, we kind of left you hanging here, buddy. Do you want?
Well, I want to get to him in as I wrap up what I was saying.
Yeah, please.
So essentially, it's just my block list. It's just a list that Twitter makes. People are claiming that I'm targeting people. No. It's just my block list made public. It's not any kind of list. They're just people that we know are not honest interlocutors, not looking for honest dialogue, and we'll target you and flag you. Yeah. Some of them, most of them, or many of them. What I've done is I've started essentially more quickly blocking people, because I've noticed that like one or two things off of. In a small conversation that like you're just not being honest in this conversation. You don't actually you're not looking at this. If you draw the conclusion that Rachel cut herself, that she did it for the lulz, I'm not taking you as an honest agent. I'm not taking you seriously. Mm-hmm. So since you were engaged a little bit more earlier this morning, I'm curious about how you maybe go about navigating that sort of a situation.
Excuse me. Taking on board what has been said, I do think there's a fair point to trying to convince the patrons of, is this a particular person you want to support? But I wouldn't know how to go about trying to find them. Are they public on Essence of Thoughts Patreon? I haven't checked. I certainly
who.
I wouldn't know how to identify who is their Patreons.
You would have to. That would be a chore.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be able to practically go about that particular option, even though that is definitely a better option. Mm-hmm. I think yes, it does play into their persecution complex, but I don't want to sell them the idea that if we stop challenging that particular method, then they will learn that they will get away with it.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but going after somebody's Patreon is a whole different level. There needs to be direct violations that are demonstrable and unquestionable. And I'm sorry, I just don't think EOT has crossed that line yet. We understand it because we are critical thinkers and we are objectively looking at things and we have an aggregate amount of information. And we know what he did at Rachel. And I know for a fact that by looking at the stuff, you can see he's just reveling in making her life miserable.
Would it be reasonable then because Rachel's little, I don't know, paper that she wrote, I don't know what to call it.
Her Word document, I guess.
Yeah, her document that she wrote out about the entire situation, sending that to Patreon. The thing is that you're dealing with a large company. Like, how are you they're not going to go through every single case about, well, you guys got in a fight and this person took it poorly. You know what I mean?
Sure. I suppose in that case, a more specific actual, document that would probably work better for sure. And if there's not enough to prove violation of terms of service, then fair enough. I'll happily.
I just don't think there is. I mean, if he said, "Hey, look, I want people to go after this person. I want them to cause them to have self-harm." He's smart enough not to do that. And so these people, again, I think a lot of these people are sociopathic. I think a lot of them do not have a conscience, lack basic empathy that most of us have. And they're smart, though. They're master manipulators. EOT is not a dumb person. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to work the system. And I think that going after his Patreon is probably a bad mistake.
Well, the question isn't necessarily
I
what
understand the
EOT
reasoning.
did or didn't do. The question did or didn't do on whether or not you can demonstrate whether or not they did or didn't do. It's what are Patreon's requirements.
Yeah. True.
Right. That's what it comes down to. Is depending on whatever Patreon deems is a violation of terms of service and whatever those terms of service technically are, and then it becomes you need to have that and what they're actually going to take seriously first before you can then move on to be like, okay, well, let me show you that they did in fact. Or
yeah, but what can you demonstrate here? I mean, it's basically we know how he triggered her, and we know that he didn't care, and we know that he's trying to push her buttons, but at the same time, it hasn't been overt where he's done any kind of active call out, and I think that's what would have to be. Does it make sense, Dave?
So, yeah, I admit I haven't properly checked myself. I've taken nobody's word for it, but apparently you need 3 pieces of good evidence on a particular issue. So when you report it, it goes through the different issues, and harassment, or I'm paraphrasing, harassment and bullying is one of them. Now, if you could find 3 instances of harassment and bullying on their behalf, then that would violate terms of service. Now, it's up to Patreon as to whether they follow through with that. And if they don't, that's their decision. I'm not going to take it any further. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think what he's done is something that they would look at and say that it was bullying. Although, like I said, we will, but I don't think they would.
Well, it comes down to you get into a gray area.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I tried to mute, but I couldn't get to it in time. My apologies.
You get into a gray area where are you trying to use this system to punish essence of thought? Because that becomes a little bit of a weird situation, because like that's essentially like what they're attempting to do is to punish and deplatform people because either they don't agree with them or because they think they're in the right, and a lot of it comes from a lot of self-righteousness because you don't agree with me, therefore you're morally inept or whatever. And so to use the system to weaponize the system, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. By the way, I don't know what it is. My hours are kicking in it, and for some reason,
I'm not saying whether you're right or wrong to do so. I'm just
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, just to jump in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was talking with David not long before you went live on Twitter, and as I said, there is a big part of me that and I phrased it as wants blood in terms of EOT, and I mean that figuratively. So, hey, if you want to take terms, I want blood, and run with that. EOT fans, hey, knock yourselves out.
And they will too. That's the funny thing. Even though you say it's figuratively, the EOT and some of his fans are so hyperbolic that they will go out of their way to try to take anything literally just to feed into their persecution.
Well,
I've seen them do this.
They're both ways, right? Like they're hyperbolic, but nobody else is allowed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
But
good point.
Sorry, guys. I was to say the reservation I kind of have about going after EOT's Patreon is kind of, number one, as you said, this will feed into EOT's, boner for persecution porn for a start, and I think Sarah Michelle sort of got into this conversation. I think she was a very calming influence in this and made me think a little bit, because my initial reaction was, yes, let's take EOT's Patreon down, but Sarah made some very, very good points, and more I thought about it, it was like we were all very, very angry over what happened with Rachel several months ago. I mean, I made a video where I was. Anyone who's seen it, I know David's
Ken
seen
Hogan
it.
was talking about it.
Yeah, Ken Hogan was talking about it.
No, yeah, well, don't even get me onto fucking Ken Hogan. I made a video responding to him as well, a fucking idiot. But Well, I think I sent a super chat to Steve last night when you talk about how dishonest Katie was, and considering you've had people like Jeronism and Kent Hovind on your channel, that's saying a lot. But
I think EOT is in some ways a lot worse.
Well, keep in mind that we never said we wouldn't have Katie on. In fact, we encouraged her to come here.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't want to turn this into a thing about Katie because obviously,
Yeah.
you know,
We did that. We have enough of that.
you've had a lot of that.
Right. Real quick, ex-Hindu Atheist says, by New Zealand, she's like, please summarize the Essence situation. I'm late to the party. It would take forever. I'll get with you later on it. But there's just go on. Just find
TLDR. He and his group bullied Rachel to the point of cutting herself.
Yeah, that's
for no reason.
For no reason, but to try to trigger her.
Because she didn't end her friendship with rationality rules.
Yep, she didn't toe the party line that he wanted, and so they were personally going after her because they knew her buttons, and he decided to try to push them in a very, very just sick. He's a malignant cancer on YouTube, in my opinion. But I think that the only way to remove these cancers is not to get people to do anything with Patreon. I think it's just people stop watching him and recognizing that what he's doing is beyond the pale as far as people that want to have a voice in the arena of public discussion. He doesn't. He shuts down communications because he'll say, you don't agree with me, and he'll start labeling you a violent transphobe like he did Rachel. That's not how you have a dialogue. That's how I think we go about these things. We educate. That's what I try to do on this channel, at least. I'm not actively trying to say people should go out and flag things or report things, because I don't. I never have. I have not flagged or reported any of the videos that are about me. Not one. Why would I? I'm like, okay, go watch them, but then come ask me about them, and that's why I get a lot of my following, because people do that. They're very advantageous for me in some ways, because they've been showing what I've been saying for a long time. EOT shows what we've been saying, his own words. So people can go watch him, then they go watch Rachel, and they go watch us and go, oh man, wow, yeah, this EOT guy, he really is doing exactly what these people are saying he's doing. That's how I think we go about it, in my opinion.
Noel's done a really good breakdown.
Noel's got it. Oh, Noel's brilliant on this.
On point.
On point. Yes.
I was going to say this because I think like Sarah brought kind of what was up earlier, and this is kind of how I feel that someone like EOT at the moment, still think someone like that can be defeated by having better arguments. Now, if they kind of cross the line into the kind of thing where Onision got the platform for like blatant doxing or like blatant false flagging or just something that's absolutely blatantly wrong, then maybe yes, we can have an argument around deplatforming them. But to me, I'm kind of almost like let EOT scream into the void at this point.
Well, that's what well, the thing is, what ends up happening is what you're talking about is they end up deplatforming themselves because nobody is interested in what they have to say anymore, and they'll go ahead and they'll say like, well, these people are calling me out, therefore they're the reason. It's like, well, yeah, we're calling out what you're saying, but we aren't deplatforming you. People not being interested in what you have to say is not cancel culture.
Right.
That's not the same thing.
Right, and that's what we do. Call people out, not cancel culture.
Yeah, we're not interested in shutting your channel down. You're the one who's interested in shutting your channel down.
That's a great point. I've said the same thing. When not go back to the Katie thing, but Katie accused me of falsely saying that I was going to burn her channel to the ground. Not what I said. What I said is I hope they burn their own channels to the ground, and that's exactly what Chess was just saying. I don't need to burn their channel to the ground. They do it themselves. On that, Steve? Yes.
No.
Sorry. Now the only time. Okay, sorry, Church. I'm afraid of you. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like the only time I've heard you say, Steve, say the phrase "burn your channel to the ground" was in reference to Godless Engineer, and his words were.
I said it to the atheist community, and then
his words were, and this be careful about this. Steve's. This was not long after the breakup of the non-sec and what Kyle did to you, but your words were along the lines of Godless Engineer, I hope you burn your channel to the ground.
Pretty much word for word what I said.
You did not say, I am going to burn your channel to the ground. There's a big difference there.
It also has nothing
Huge
to do with
difference.
Katie.
Yeah,
That
no,
was-
yeah,
that was-
I never said
that
anything to
was what
Katie
you
about
said.
that. Yeah.
And I don't remember what on Hangout it was, but I do remember that particular. It was not long after the breakup of non-sec, but
Yeah.
on the Hangout, I do remember Steve saying, and I think Katie has taken this. And then I'm sorry, I don't want to get into the Katie thing. It's irrelevant to this Hangout, but she's taken that. I'm gonna,
Yeah, she's
that
lied.
burn your
She's lied
channel
about
to
it.
the ground
She's taking it out of
line, and
context and
it
twisting it.
wasn't
and
even
making it narrative.
it was reference to her anyway. It's into reference to the godless engineer, and I'll just say for the record, I mean, I personally don't have any beef with godless engineer or KC, and I know Steve has kind of said to me like, "Hey, look, you want to talk to them? Go ahead. I'm not judging you. I'm not going to disassociate you just because you talk to people Steve doesn't like." And I just want to make that point very, very clear. I get on with godless engineering, KC, but
Something that I've finally done actually in relation to that is that, and I probably would do the same thing if they're bringing on, if somebody was bringing on Essence of Thought onto their channel. It depends. David is in a very specific position where he can interview people and talk to them in that regard. So I would not have any issue with David talking to anybody because he's in a very unique position. But if you are bringing people onto your channel to push something or to assist in either boosting your numbers or to send out that, to assist in sending out that person's message, and one of these people is along the lines of Godless Engineer and Casey and Mr. Atheist, I will straight up unsubscribe to you because I'm not I understand that a lot of people try to be neutral, but in this case there is so much egregious shit that has gone on that these people have said and done that being neutral is no longer neutral at this point. Being neutral would be not supporting them and then also maybe not supporting Steve. That would be the closest thing to neutral that you could get at this point. But if you're bringing one side on and not the other, or you're bringing that one side on, period, you are no longer neutral. And on top of that, you are using my support of you to support these people in their endeavors and what they're doing and encouraging them within the community. That's a problem. You are no longer being neutral to how you're handling or how you're holding people accountable within your own community.
Sorry, I
David, however,
like,
again, is in a separate category, specifically because he does interviews. Specifically because interviewing GE would be incredibly interesting, and getting him on a call to discuss things and his perspective and these things outside of the atheist community would be incredibly fascinating and interesting to watch, because doing interviews can be holding people accountable provided you're asking the right questions.
Yeah, I was just to say because that's a very good point.
Also,
Jess.
I'm just biased and I really like David.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of feel like we're cutting down. I feel like I kind of hijacked this, and I mean, David's your actual guest here, so I feel like we should kind of let him speak.
Yeah,
not at all. No.
Yeah. Okay. So let me talk, follow up that real quick. This weird narrative that some people have ran that says, well, if you associate with certain people, Steve tells you can't associate with them. That's never happened. It's just. But there was that one thing with G-Man a long time ago. That was a joke. But that
was more of like, can we not for a little bit?
Yeah, it was 24 hours, right? But look, people know that I do not want anything to do with Mr. Atheist or Godless Engineer. I don't think they're good people. I know that they lie. I know that they've lied to their audience. I am convinced of this, bar none. I have overwhelming evidence of this occurring. What they did to basically allow Kyle to do what he did. If people want to have them on their channel,
allow and assist,
whatever, they're allowed to do it. But to me, when a person has Mr. Atheist on or Godless Engineer on, they're basically saying, we don't care what you did. We don't care the fact that you try to help cover this up. We don't care that you lied to Steve, because Mr. Atheist did lie to me. I mean, he said, you're going to get your money. And then when I asked about it, he blocked me. And then when we told him not to stream to my channel, he still did. So people that have him on the channel, they just don't care about that. Okay.
Well, not only do they not, it is the exact same mindset that Essence of Thoughts people use. and the ends justify the means. This more extremist view. Now, I'm not saying these people are necessarily extremists for having these people on, but it's an ends justifies the means kind of mentality. It's, well, I'm separating out what they did to this group of people because their opinions about this thing justify me allowing that thing to happen without any kind of repercussion.
But we got to move on a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was going to suggest about the moving on thing because obviously,
yeah, we're running out of time.
I know you guys got your beef for Mr. Atheist, but I'm sure as you're about to move on to something, I do have to kind of give him a bit of credit for.
How the hell does that make any sense? Sorry, I just read something in the chat.
Sorry for sorry, Jesh. I thought you were talking to me.
Sorry.
Just actually for stepping up to the plate and defending David in the last 24 hours or so. So I do have to give him credit there, and obviously Shannon, Rachel, as well, which I'm sure is probably where we're going with the conversation in a moment. So I do kind of have to give Jimmy a little bit of credit for that. So.
Yeah, well,
hey, I just want to address in the chat real quick. Kyle owns 50%, so it's not possible for Steve to get the show back.
Yeah, that's just
so it totally,
are these people
totally
just
makes sense that it totally makes sense that Steve owns 50% and Kyle owns 60%. So it totally makes sense that Kyle has 100%.
There you go, higher math. Look,
all right,
yeah,
we're
gonna move on. By the way, we're dissolving the partnership. So I mean, yeah. By the way, if you don't understand the legal stuff, don't try to weigh in on it. You're just gonna look like an idiot. Seriously, okay. I mean, everybody who's weighed in on this, that is, there's one lawyer, and who's not a lawyer has gotten everything wrong. Unless you're in my inner circle and know all the documents and all the evidence I have, you really don't have a clue to weigh in on. Trust me. But
it's 50-95.
Yeah. But let's move on real quick because I wanted to get this out there because there's an atheist convention going on in the UK.
Yes.
I think it's going to be in the UK with Richard Dawkins and Alex O'Connor. And Dave, you had one of the organizers on, Lance, and I never heard of this guy before, and I did watch the interview. Cringe probably would be an understatement.
Oh my god, it seemed like while I was watching it, I was just like, is this like getting drunk?
I thought he was drunk, but he wasn't. He wasn't drunk. I found out.
He wasn't drinking. No, I was just. It was really bizarre to me because I was just like, did he like? Because that's the way it comes up. At one point, he asked if we're like, is this being recorded? And it's like, dude, you're on a live show. What the hell?
Yeah. So Dave, tell us about Lance and on your podcast
and how uncomfortable that was.
Oh my god! And by the way, you handled that brilliantly. So just FYI, most people probably wouldn't have handled it as brilliantly as you did. So props to you. But tell the honest that story.
So I, as we said at the top of the show, do interviews with various different people and personalities from the community. And I thought it'd be interesting to get a convention organizer on, and we could say various different things about how to organize. How do you get somebody like Dawkins to turn up? Because that's a genuinely very interesting question to me. And there were already some very bizarre things he was saying off air beforehand. So after about 5 minutes, he was saying, well, I've seen some of your content, and normally you get to the point within 5 minutes. But you haven't mentioned the convention yet. Like, what are you doing?
Off with talking about the
convention. I said there's a convention. Yeah, but
yeah, because that was off air. He didn't realize he was even. He didn't realize we were not live.
Oh, really?
He thought as soon as he jumped in, we were live.
Okay.
But we were just obviously, it's like me jumping into Skype with you guys, and then we're not live straight away.
Right.
Like.
Yeah. We got to
really
set up
odd.
and test the audio and
by
test the audio up, right, Steve?
Exactly. And real quick, if somebody is laying false narrative in my live chat, you bet your ass I will remove you. You're outright wrong. And I'm tired of people doing that. And so, yes, I will remove people, but I'm giving you an opportunity to knock your shit off. That's the difference. If you say things that are not true, that are demonstrably not true, you will be removed.
It's also a bizarre claim to say that Steve doesn't remove people or doesn't block people. At no point has anybody ever
I block people all the time.
That it's what are you talking about?
I got a block list that long of people I don't want to deal with.
He doesn't block people for disagreeing with him.
Right. Exactly.
Listen, nuance, and context.
That's what I'm saying. This is
Stop only listening to half of what people 50%, motherfucker.
God. The dishonesty of these
God.
people is ridiculous.
Anyway,
yeah.
continue. Sorry.
No, interestingly, the only person I have blocked on Twitter is Essence of Thought.
Understandably so. Yeah.
That was the tipping point. Sorry. So had Lance on. The event itself, just to clarify, is in Brighton, in the UK. It's a 2-day weekend event, and on the Saturday night there's a gala banquet where there will be 10 awards given, and Richard Dawkins will get a 11th award, as it were, which is like a lifetime service to rationality or whatever it is, and that's presented by Lawrence Krauss, I believe, and he's also speaking at the event with people like Cosmic Skeptic, Aaron Ra, as we said, Miriam Namazi, and all sorts of other people. And when they'd come on, we actually went live, he was being very, I hope I'm saying this word right, psychophantic. He was just being it was showing far too much adoration for me, the channel, and it felt very bizarre from the off. So I questioned him further. Rather than taking the compliment, I questioned him further and said, well, okay, which bits of the channel have you seen?
Yeah.
In that case, because I'm genuinely interested. Have you, that could lead somewhere in the conversation, isn't it? And he couldn't pinpoint it because apparently him and his co-organizer, John, only watch intros for some reason. Not sure how much that consists of, whether that's the first minute, 5 minutes, I don't know. But apparently that's what they do. I went into further questioning where we end up having a normal conversation, as both of you already know.
Mm-hmm.
And even Jeff, he's muted himself, but you all know what it's like. It's just we go off into various different tangents talking about various different subjects. It might be topical, it might be futurist, it might be whatever it might be. And I asked him something that I've been thinking for a while, because the other day I teach in a school and I had to teach Sikhism to a bunch of year fours, and learning bits about Sikhism. I don't hear anything from this community spoken out against it. So I hear Zara K talking about Hinduism. I obviously hear a lot from the Abrahamic religions, but I don't hear anything about Sikhism. So I thought, as he's an organizer and he's so professed as an anti-theist, I thought I'd ask about that. And he gave this sort of what was ironically a run-of-the-mill answer, because he accused me of being run-of-the-mill later on in the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Because his answer was essentially that, well, when you're in the more the higher percentage of whichever religion you're dealing with in your country, the more likely it is that that's what they're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think that was roughly the answer. But he
wasn't as eloquent as I was, obviously.
It's like, yeah. So there's various different moments where he's trying to eventually build to this moment where he's complimenting me in the channel. Then he sort of hits me down with all these various different comments.
He was negging you the whole time.
Oh, yeah, he was negging you.
That I've learned this week.
Yeah, great. It's a great word. Yeah.
That I was being negged, as it were, and then he sort of comes in towards the end, like, I can help you with that. And it's that classic manipulation that I now realize. But at the time, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I've never received that. Like, from the reaction that came afterwards from people like Navadia or Rachel or Shannon, the people who I reached out to, who very quickly, within 24 hours, got a response video out, they were reacting with rage. And I was like,
and by the way, I agreed with all of them. I watched some of their stuff too. I watched, again, you asked people to watch it. I was one of those people. I didn't make a video on it, but everything that they put out, I agree with.
Well.
You know, What's
Yeah,
that?
we're making it now.
Well, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. But you didn't ask me at the time to actually make a video on it. You just asked me and some other people to do it. Yeah, I mean, they were
What do you
spot
mean?
on her
How
points.
dare you? You're asking people to pick sides against the atheist community. You asked me to look at this thing.
Yeah, it's
Hashtag
hard.
holy Kool-Aid.
It's hard. And by the way, I put the link in the video description, so go watch this. And I'm gonna do it again. Go watch the video. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to Dave. He needs to get to 1,000 subs. I don't know why he's not there yet. So this would be a good way to go do that. But yeah,
Because the algorithm hates us.
it was just a very bizarre interview that went sideways really fast, and
That was weird.
I don't think he understood how he was being presented. Now, I'm not going to say that I disagreed with everything that he said. There were some things that he said that I was like, I understand what he was saying, and how he was saying it was very piss poor. He was
the
trying to make,
context was
Yeah,
everything.
it almost seemed like
Right.
the interview turned because he got pissed off by something you said, but you didn't say anything.
yeah, and it was trying to make it like, well, you know what, all guys, this. I'm like, no, well, no, don't lump us all together
Locker
like
room
that.
talk, though.
Yeah, it's not locker room. Yeah, you don't do a Trumpism. Okay, because no, it doesn't work that way. Can people get the whole thing? He was talking about getting mixed signals and stuff like that. And but look, anybody's ever dated somebody has gotten mixed signals. Okay, but there's how you deal with mixed signals and certain things you just don't do if you're getting mixed signals. You don't do certain things. I mean, unless you have consent, because we talk about that C word a lot. There's a reason for that. I don't think he understood those concepts.
Well,
That's
there
where I
was
think
this
he got
bizarre
confused.
thing where he was saying that I got mixed signals, therefore I'm justified into putting my hand up a woman's skirt. It's like, no. There are
I don't know.
you seem to have jumped some steps here.
To
You
which-
don't
to
just.
which-
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to which I'm going to make the same accusation, just to bring this back,
Yeah.
just for context's sake. So he's at this point the thing he's trying to get me to do is be an interviewer at the event, so that when Dawkins or whoever it is has their speech, I sit down with them in a TED talk sort of
Type.
way,
Gotcha.
and I'm asking them further hard questions. And he was saying, you aren't asking me any hard questions. This is a run-of-the-mill channel. If everything's very happy, everything's very lovely, and that was building up for about, as you'll see in the 11-minute clip. I want people to be patient because I really wanted that first 4 or 5 minutes. I asked a question at about 5 minutes 12 seconds in that clip, and the rest of that early part
It just
of that,
goes.
it's just him just going, you weren't prepared with me, you need to do so much better at the event. And then I ask him the hard question, which is obviously, like, why would I not ask him whether it's right to platform Lawrence Krauss given his sexual assault allegations?
Right.
Now, we could have had a reasonable discussion that said, I don't believe that he's been convicted of anything. He's my friend. I trust him from instinct. And as such, I'll continue to review the legal proceedings or whatever, and I'll make sure that people feel safe at the event, and that sort of thing. But instead, his answer went into justifying, hey, we all do it, you do it. And he was saying no, I fucking don't.
Yeah.
I don't do this. I've never done this. Like, what are you talking about? And I could see where I think he was answering questions that I hadn't asked.
Right.
Because he kept going back to touching. Oh, it's okay to touch on the shoulder. Yes, it's fine. I work in school. You're okay to touch a child on the shoulder to get their attention. Like, that's fine. It's not paedophilia, you know. So he was equating touching somebody's shoulder with the specific example I gave of Christina Rudd's claim that the first time she met Lawrence Krauss, he put his hand under her skirt and turned it onto her thigh. The very first time they met. And he's trying to justify that in a very sort of what appears to be a drunken way, and he can't really put a coherent sentence together. But
yeah, and we know
yeah,
the story.
I
And
don't-
by the way, I like Christina Rad, and I don't think she has any reason to lie or any reason to exaggerate.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole story as far as we weren't there. I don't know. And we had like Lawrence Krauss on the Non Sequitur show, and I will stand by that because
Well, it was
Yeah.
beforehand as well.
no, I think this was after. But I don't know enough about the situation to really weigh in one or another. I have said, though, I don't think Christina Raz's a person to make stuff up or exaggerate. I watched her video. She seemed really sincere. There's no question about it. She had the ring of truth. But there's always that perspective type thing. And I don't like to, especially with somebody like, Krause's stature, to kind of convict somebody unjustly, right? So I do try to always give benefit of the doubt. That's what I do in this channel. I do give benefit of the doubt. Doesn't mean that I agree with them. Doesn't mean that I think that maybe Lawrence Krause didn't do something wrong. I don't know. But I think your questions, very fair questions, but Lance just did not know how to answer that question properly.
For somebody who was complaining about wanting difficult questions.
But he wasn't prepared for that. I mean, his bizarre narrative was just mind-boggling, that he thought that his answer was acceptable by any measure. I mean, if you wanted to criticize me for having Lawrence Krause on, be my guest, right? Like I said, it'd be fair to do that. But I'm not trying to justify if he did something wrong. I'm not saying that if what he did wasn't horrific. Of course.
Yeah, that's a different argument.
Yeah, he was trying to justify it, though. He was trying to say, hey, if this was the case and he did this, it was just a simple misunderstanding, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not how that works. And so his whole trying to do apologetics for Krause didn't work in Krause's favor by any means.
Of course not.
Yeah.
I don't know how long you want me to speak at length, but I've got what is roughly a
We got
transcript.
10 minutes before we got to end this.
Okay, right. So I'll skim over some bits. So some of the things he said, and I am pretty much 99% quoting, apart from just a small letter here or there. You're just being like a run-of-the-mill kind of like everybody asked me the same question. You haven't challenged our thinking. You have your kind of run-of-the-mill happy things are good. You haven't asked any hard questions. You haven't asked me a question that was hard enough that I should answer it. And by the way, Nakasuchi did a response video in which 20 minutes before he says this, he says, tough question.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I actually say you've set yourself up. And then he continues, are we recording this or are we off? I really like your questions. They're not deep enough. This is between me and your 400 viewers, or it's now over 700. Thank you to one and all for the promo. And then I said the actual question about sexual assault allegations and platforming him. He said, absolutely, absolutely. Please do not. Look at you, look at you, look at you, look at me and look at you. You have never come on. You two, we're guys. We're going to talk about this on a guy level. We're not going to talk about this Krause stuff. We're going to talk about this on a guy level. You never got wrong signals. You never got wrong signals from a girl, and you thought she likes me and she doesn't like me, and you touched her. Come on, dude. I did it. You did it.
No, it doesn't.
It just goes on. It just goes on. It just goes on.
Locker room talk isn't a thing.
And by the way, there are some people out there like myself. I have been actually have girls making out with me, and I'm thinking to myself, does she like me? I mean, and so I'm telling you, I swear to you, women that are sexually, touching me, and I'm like,
40 years ago.
how do I respond? Right? Yeah, exactly. When I was 20 something.
When he was hanging out with Sweet the other month.
Oh, even still, I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. But actually, with Sweet, I didn't even have to even think about anything.
What do I do with my hand?
We were just talking for the longest time. It was just what we enjoy. We like to talk.
Well, I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't take signals well because I don't even try to read them.
I've got a question for David. Now, you've had some time to reflect on this, and you've had a bunch of response coming from, I'm sure, a few different angles and a lot of different ideas. So what are your own thoughts, and how have those maybe changed? Because at the time, you were like, this is just kind of weird of a conversation.
Oh, you saw Dave's face?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and you've now had people had people come back angry, and I'm sure you've had people come back being like, oh well, it's not that weird, but so now that you've had a bunch of feedback and you've had that's good.
Yeah.
So you've had a few people come back now, and now you've had some time to kind of reflect on it and watch it again yourself. What are your thoughts about it then and now?
So while we were waiting for Steve to sort out the mic at the start, I was going through all the lovely new comments because of various different stages this week that Rachel did a video, Shannon did a video, Mr. Atheist did a video, Nakasuchi did a video, Jeff did a video. Thank you, Jeff, if you can still hear me. And there's been various...
I can still hear you, mate, yes.
cracking. There's been subscriber bump each time, and as such, people have been watching that video each time. So there's been more comments have just kept on being added, and they're all saying the same thing, apart from maybe literally one or two, and they're the same people going to each of those videos, saying, "This is ridiculous. It's clearly a joke." And it's like, well, hold on a second. If I may continue to quote, I said, I clarified the Christina Rad claim, and I said the specific claim was putting his hand under her skirt. His reply was, I don't know how many times I've put my hand under your skirt, but you didn't bitch once. Now, that's not how you react if you're the organizer of an event in which people are concerned about their safety. Like, would you feel safe sending your daughter to that event, or her deciding upon herself to go? Because you don't trust that man to take a sexual allegation seriously.
Right.
And I didn't even think
Or
about
he's
that
gonna
until the day
justify it.
after. Yeah. Because I think at this point, I'm only thinking about being effectively groomed into a situation where he sent me an email since saying he's reserved a hotel room for me. He's offered, some of these tickets as well, after Christmas, the VIP ones go up to over $1,000.
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
this is like a full-on gala
And
kind
he
of
wants
event.
you on that, and he was saying that he wants you specifically at the as. Honestly, it sounds like
Yeah.
he's actually wants you there to be able to get at you himself. Like he's acting
Yeah.
like a predator towards you.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like. And that's
Mhm.
probably what it looked like.
It was uncomfortable to watch. Like I said, you handled it like a pro. You really did.
Thank you.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, yes, he was definitely trying to butter you up, David. There's no two ways about it. But I got really angry, just even regarding all the stuff about what his answer to your question about Kraus. I got really angry because I just thought he treated you in that interview as if you were beneath him. And at times, I know you said it earlier when you were talking to Atheist Pastor, you didn't necessarily earlier today that you didn't feel it was condescending, but that's kind of how I saw how he came across to you. He's treated you as if you were beneath him, and
Yeah, I actually
yeah.
agree with John Wright in the chat. I don't think he came off as condescending exactly. It was definitely as if he was beneath him, but not in a condescending manner, more in like a in
Fair
like an
enough.
authoritative kind of way. And somebody made a comment real quick. I just want to touch on. He wants to impose himself on you. That's that.
Yeah. It was definitely. It seemed like he was projecting, but
Oh,
I
he
can't
was,
pinpoint any specific thing that he was projecting. Like,
Oh.
I've done this crime, so have you? Because I can't like get into details and report that.
Yeah.
So somebody came back to me on Twitter and said, "Oh, why don't you report this guy then?" It's like, well, what evidence do I have?
Yeah.
Like, he's just being he's being creepy, but it's still a threat. Like it goes on at the very end. He's saying things like, you know what I'm going to do? When I come to the event, I'm going to put my hand on your knee. I'm going to rub it up your leg. You can say what you want. Laughs. Okay, it's just going to be your knee. Like, he's answering a very serious question at this point.
Yeah, and he wasn't kidding when he said, like, you listen
Yeah.
to the thing. He's not laughing in like, haha, this is a funny joke. And if the other person is clearly not uncomfortable, are you really joking at that point?
Yeah.
Nobody else is laughing.
And so to kind of put a bow on this, Dave, you wanted that interview to be nominated for something, so they had to watch it at the event. Which, by the way, I gotta tell you, dude, brilliant move. Wow, I love when people do brilliant things. I really do.
It's a malicious compliance.
That was extremely a brilliant thing to do, dude.
Yeah, give us a little bit more details about the how we can make that happen.
We're not negging you, by the way. This is actually a sincere compliment. Okay.
I treat any compliment with contempt anyway. No, so what I ended up doing was this gala event has those 10 awards that I said earlier at some point. And one of them is Video of the Year. and I clipped this into 11-minute clip. I don't know which video you put down into the comments. I'm sure some of these lovely mods, like Sweet Heathen, could probably find the 11-minute clip somewhere, and that's the specific clip that was going to be nominated. And the best thing about nominating it on their website is that you have to give a reason as to why you're nominating it. So I want people to get as creative as they can with their replies, and as snarky and as as interesting as possible.
The Twitter
Sending various different, very polite messages. I don't want people to abuse anybody. If you can do something witty, that would be best.
Sassy. Give them the sass.
Sassy's good.
Yeah.
I like sassy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, by the
I
way,
think that's a good place to end it.
yeah, I'm gonna put a shout to somebody's in the live chat that I've she used to work at McDonald's. So we have lunch that time when I was working at Kohl's, and she's actually somebody who used to flirt with me all the time. She could tell you right now how shy I really am in real life. Yeah, so I mean, I have not changed that much. I have a persona that online that's really just an extension of me that I kind of want to be outgoing, but in the real world, I'm not as outgoing as people may think that I am. But I am going to put my Patreon in the live chat here. It's seasonal. It's gone down like 20%. Maybe some of the stuff has to do with the fact that maybe we're doing some other content. I get it. I only want people to Patreon and watch if they like the content. And I know we have people coming over from other channels that have no idea about the history of our community, which goes back a very long time, very detailed. And if they only knew half the stuff that went on, I mean, we had a guy in our community who's end up actually literally being one of the biggest pedophiles in UK of all time. He got arrested, Matt Bell. We have a rich, diverse culture in our community, and we occasionally have drama. If people want to stick around and they like kind of stuff like this, was this kind of drama, great. If they don't, I get it as well.
Yeah, on Monday we're looking at bringing in Sarah Michelle and Ante Ordinary to talk a little bit more on the essence of thought issue,
Yes.
as that's a bowl and a half.
Oh, is it?
And both of them are deplatformed at this point again, so they got to talk somewhere.
Yeah. So
but go follow
Sorry,
David.
guys.
Yeah, go follow David.
Follow
Yeah.
Godless
Sorry,
Succumber.
guys.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. Please follow. Just to mention, first of all, both David and I have both made playlists of all the videos relating to this this particular subject with Lance Gregorchuk on YouTube, which I will add this to that playlist when we're offline. But before we go, I would just like to put this out there, and I want to echo some of the sentences of the video I made. And this is a direct call out to Lance. First of all, Lance, you owe David an apology for the way you treated him in that interview. I found it disgusting, personally. Secondly, I just feel you owe an apology for the way you dismissed legitimate concerns here. Now, my personal issue is not with the platforming of Lawrence Krauss. That is not my issue. My issue is with the dismissive tone that he took towards legitimate concerns that people have here about safety, being safe at that event.
Indeed.
That's my concern here. So, Mr. Lance, if you hear this, please listen to the criticisms. Please engage with people. Now, I know Shannon, in her video, actually offered to have a conversation with you and talk with stuff with you. Please take Shannon up on this offer. But
I agree.
I will say this. I had an intention of going into this event because David Conn knows where I live, and I live in the south of England, but Brighton is not far away from me. About an hour or two on the train or whatever. I had every intention of attending this event because there are certain people there speakers that I wanted to see live and actually get to hopefully get the chance to meet live, especially in particular Aaron Ra and Cosmic Skeptic. But I do not feel in good conscience that I can support this event whilst Mr. Gregorchuk has this attitude. I would love, I would love to come back in a few weeks if Mr. Gregorchuk is willing to listen to the criticism and not double down on this position, but listen to the concerns people have. I would love to come back in a few weeks and say, hey, I would love to get a ticket to your event, go and see these people and promote the hell out of this. But as it stands at the moment, I do not feel I can do that. So, Lance, if you're listening, first of all, you owe David an apology. You owe an apology for the response you made to that, and you need to engage and listen to people's concerns. I want to give Lance the chance to do that. That's my public call out, okay?
And somebody could clip that. I don't think Lance will ever see that unless somebody actually shows him. But I think that's a good way to end it.
Share it around.
Yeah, share it around.
So yeah, share this video, clip that if you guys are interested in clipping that. Go follow David's channel. It's great. He's got a very unique content, something that nobody else actually does, and it's interviewing atheists within the community without actually talking about atheism, which is really interesting.
Well, and he interviews other people too. I mean,
and he does gaming and all kinds of good.
Not just an atheist. I've been on his channel. We had
I saw him
a great
playing
talk.
Rocket League the other day.
Yeah, I mean, you had barely any followers. I was on your
Steve,
channel.
we're trying to wrap it up.
Well, I mean,
every time. I'm gonna end you.
I'll be before my channel's gone.
Go follow Godless Cover.
Please sub to
Jeff.
Jeff.
He has to say. Check out David. Follow us here. Come to my channel for art. Follow us on Twitter if you want to see that goddamn mess. And if you're interested in supporting and helping out in dealing with people who are gaming the system, who are cyberbullies, go find us on Twitter.
Good night. Morning. Bye.